Hello everyone, welcome to my political journalism news channel. The story for today is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has warned NATO and the West that Russian missiles could target their countries if NATO does not impose a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Mr. Zelenskyy has repeatedly called for NATO to impose a no-fly zone to stop Russian aircraft from flying over Ukraine. US President Joe Biden and other NATO leaders have rejected the idea, saying it could force NATO jet fighters to shoot down Russian aircraft, risking World War III between the nuclear-armed superpowers. And now I repeat, again, if you do not close our skies, it is only a matter of time before Russian missiles fall on your territory, on the territory of NATO, and on the homes of citizens of NATO countries, Mr. Zelenskyy said in a video address on Monday. Mr. Zelenskyy referenced the killing of American journalist Brent Renaud, who was reportedly shot and killed by Russian forces in the town of Irpin, northwest of Kyiv. Another journalist was wounded in the attack. It was a deliberate attack by the Russian military. They knew what they were doing, but not everyone in the West seems to know what they're doing, Mr. Zelenskyy said. The wounded journalist, Juan Arredondo, said the two of them were filming refugees fleeing the area when they were shot at while in a car approaching a checkpoint. He said the driver turned around but the firing at him continued. Hours after the shooting of Mr. Renaud, Irpin Mayor Alexander Markuson said journalists would be denied entry to the city. In this way, we want to save the lives of both them and our defenders, he said. Asked about the reports, Mr. Sullivan told CBS News that the US government would be consulting with Ukraine to determine how this happened and would then execute appropriate consequences. This is part and parcel of what has been a brazen aggression on the part of the Russians, where they have targeted civilians, they have targeted hospitals, they have targeted places of worship, and they have targeted journalists. Ukraine alleges Russia committed war crime. Ukraine's Human Rights Monitor says Russia used phosphorus bombs in an attack on the town of Popasna in the eastern Luhansk region, calling it a war crime. Lyudmila Denisova shared a photograph purporting to show the alleged attack that occurred overnight Saturday, local time, but did not say if Ukraine had concrete evidence. The bombing of a civilian city by the Russian attackers with these weapons is a war crime and a crime against humanity, according to the Rome Convention, she said in an online statement. Reuters could not immediately verify any of the reports. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said Russia would pay a severe price if it is confirmed to have used chemical weapons in the conflict with Ukraine. Mr. Sullivan told CBS that Russian President Vladimir Putin had resorted to using these weapons because his forces were not advancing as fast as he had predicted. War escalates on western side of Ukraine. Russian missiles have hit a large Ukrainian base near the border with NATO member Poland, in an escalation of the war in the west of the country. The attack killed 35 people and wounding 134, according to regional governor Maxim Kozitsky. Russia's defense ministry said Sunday's airstrike had destroyed a large amount of weapons supplied by foreign nations that were being stored at the sprawling training facility, and that it had killed up to 180 foreign mercenaries. Reuters could not independently verify the casualties reported by either side. The attack on the Yavoriv International Center for Peacekeeping and Security, a training base just 25 kilometers from the Polish border that has previously hosted NATO military instructors, brought the conflict to the doorstep of the Western Defense Alliance. On Saturday, Russia's deputy foreign minister had warned that convoys of Western arms shipments to Ukraine could be considered legitimate targets. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told CBS that any attack on NATO territory would trigger a full response by the alliance. Kyiv stockpiling food as strikes continue. Air raid sirens wailed once again across the Ukrainian capital Kyiv, and authorities said they were stockpiling 2 weeks' worth of essential food items for the 2 million people who have not yet fled from Russian forces that have been attempting to encircle the city. Ramzan Kadyrov, the leader of Russia's Chechnya region and an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin, said on Sunday that he had traveled into Ukraine to meet Chechen troops attacking Kyiv. Mr. Kadyrov, who has often described himself as Putin's foot soldier, has posted videos of heavily armed Chechen troops in the Kyiv region as part of Russia's invasion force. The US and European Union have repeatedly accused him of rights abuses, which he denies. Russia's invasion has sent more than 2.5 million people fleeing across Ukraine's borders and trapped hundreds of thousands in besieged cities. It is terrifying how violent and inhuman it is, Olga, a refugee from Kyiv, said after crossing into Romania. In eastern Ukraine, Russian troops were trying to surround Ukrainian forces as they advanced from the port of Mariupol in the south and the second city of Kharkiv in the north, the British Defence Ministry said. The city council in Mariupol said in a statement that 2,187 residents had been killed since the start of the invasion. Kharkiv, Ukraine's second-largest city, has suffered some of the heaviest bombardments. Videos from one resident, Tima Aliyev, who is helping bring aid to residents, show bombed buildings lining streets, burned-out cars riddled with shrapnel holes and debris strewn around. "We will stitch up the wounds and the pain of our country and our city," he said. "We are ready to build it and we are ready to renew it when the war is over. We're not going anywhere." British intelligence also said Russian forces were advancing from Crimea, which Russia annexed from Ukraine in 2014, and were trying to circumvent Mykolaiv as they looked to drive west towards Odessa. In Chernihiv, around 150 kilometers northeast of Kyiv, firefighters rescued residents from a burning building after it was heavily shelled, as video from Ukraine's emergency service, and verified by Reuters, showed. Moscow denies targeting civilians. It blames Ukraine for failed attempts to evacuate civilians from encircled cities, an accusation Ukraine and its Western allies strongly reject. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said on Sunday nearly 125,000 people had been evacuated via humanitarian corridors agreed with Russia. Mr. Zelenskyy visited injured Ukrainian servicemen at a military hospital on Sunday, speaking with medical staff and even taking selfies with patients. Chernobyl workers exhausted. Staff operating radioactive waste facilities at Chernobyl have stopped carrying out safety-related repairs as they are exhausted since they have not been relieved since Russia seized the site last month, Ukraine told the UN nuclear watchdog. The Ukrainian regulator informed the IAEA that staff at Chernobyl were no longer carrying out repair and maintenance of safety-related equipment, in part due to their physical and psychological fatigue after working non-stop for nearly 3 weeks, the International Atomic Energy Agency said in a statement on Sunday. Ukraine's Atomic Energy Ministry on Sunday said power had been restored to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, which meant cooling systems would operate normally and not have to use backup power. Ukraine had earlier warned of an increased risk of a radiation leak if a high-voltage power line to the plant, which was damaged in fighting, were not repaired. Both sides optimistic about talks. Despite the violence, both sides gave their most upbeat assessment yet of the prospects for progress at bilateral talks that have been held periodically since Russia the start of the invasion, although they gave no details of what might be agreed. Russia is already beginning to talk constructively, Ukrainian negotiator and presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak said in a video posted online. "I think that we will achieve some results literally in a matter of days." A Russian delegate to talks with Ukraine, Leonid Slutsky, was quoted by Russian state media RIA as saying they had made significant progress and it was possible that delegations could soon reach draft agreements. Neither side said what these would cover. 3 rounds of talks between the two sides in Belarus, most recently last Monday, had focused mainly on humanitarian issues. The White House said in a statement on Sunday that U.S. President Joe Biden and Francis Emmanuel Macron had spoken and underscored their commitment to holding Russia accountable for the invasion of Ukraine. That is all for Today News. Thank you for watching to my channel. Please be sure to leave your comment and subscribe below for